Hello, everyone. In today's episode, I'm joined with Makayla, and Makayla is from Canada. And in today's episode, it's gonna be a really interesting one because Makayla has autism and Crohn's, like me, and it's gonna be a really nice conversation because it's quite rare. What I found, and Makayla's also found that to meet someone who's got Crohn's and autism. So thank you, Makayla, for coming on today.
Yeah, hi. It's good to be here. I'm a little bit awkward once there's recording, but so as you said, I'm Michaela. I'm from the west coast of Canada, pretty close to the U.S. border. Um, ooh, about me. That's what we're doing. About me.
Yeah,
See, I
yeah,
told you I get nervous.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I have Crohn's and autism. Outside of that, in terms of me, I like traveling. I've been to a few countries around the world. Um, I like plants. I like uh, learning more about things. Like since being diagnosed with Crohn's, I've been kind of obsessed with learning more about the digestive system and how all of that stuff works. When I was a kid, it was drawing maps. That was the obsession. But
Hmm.
go through all these different phases. The oh, what would you call it when autistic people have special interests? That's what
That's
you
it.
call it.
Yeah.
You know, like I kind of go through different ones because I have technically have ADHD as well, and like with ADHD, you get like all the different, like you can't stick to one interest, so it's like a contradiction of itself. Like I go through all these different interests, but like very narrow on each of them. Fun times, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Like yeah, like you like to like go to different places. Like, do you have anywhere like this year that you are gonna go or you're thinking about going to visit?
Um, yeah, actually, I actually started the year down in Los Angeles visiting a friend. Because I'm from, just for context, like I'm from the Vancouver area, so like
Mm.
you think like as far west coast, but as far south basically as you can go towards the US. So like I'm like Pacific time and all of that. But like so I took a plane down there to Los Angeles. I was gonna freaking take the bus back, but they or the train and they canceled it like last second without telling me. So that was just fun. But
Um,
so I had to fly. But no, I'm gonna be hopefully doing a bit this year if all goes well. There's I don't know if you would have heard of it, but there's this organization called Girls with Guts. So it's more targeted
mhm.
towards women, but they do retreats every year, but
Yeah.
pre-COVID. But they're going to be doing one again this year if
Okay.
nothing goes to shit again.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and it's going to be out in Pennsylvania, so on the east coast of the states.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm going to be flying into New York and then going to the retreat and then hanging out in New York for about a week after that.
Oh,
Because it costs a bit to fly out there, so may as well make the most of it, right? Explore like
yeah.
new place. And
Yeah.
then I'm hoping to get into this other program where I'd be traveling out to Quebec, but I haven't got confirmation on that, so I'm not going to go too into that one. But I'm
Hmm.
hoping that that's the thing. But I have a massive travel bug, and COVID has not been nice to me that way.
Hmm.
It's sucked not being able to go places.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. It's been very annoying, hasn't it? Like not being able to do much for the past few years. Um
Yeah.
and and still stuff going on in the world at the moment, which isn't it's not very nice. But like for me, that this year I had a plan. I had a plan at the end of last year to do arrange things to do this year. Like in the UK, I'm going to a place called Cardiff in
Hmm.
Wales. It's in Wales. Where I'm gonna visit a few places of a TV show I like. Um, I'm gonna go Cornwall summertime, which is also um, it's it's probably a few hours probably between that and Cardiff in Wales, um, I'm wanting to do a skydive this year. I'm gonna
Nice.
for my birthday, because I'm gonna be 21 in September. And I want to do it. I have to pick 2 days to do it. So it's either going to be on the 11th of September, and the 12th is my birthday. So I hope it's on the 12th. If not, the 11th. Oh well, if it's 11th, I could say I've done it on my birthday, or the day before my birthday. But it's something to look forward to. I just need to decide um, what organisation I want to raise money for, because I have to pick one to raise about £300. £300 for a charity. I'm not sure about doing it for Crohn's and Colitis UK this year, because I've done quite a lot for them with fundraising. So I might do it for autism this year, because I haven't really done much fundraising on the autism side of things. Yeah, so I got that planned, and I'm excited now. But when I'm there, I'll be anxious. I will just looking outside. I'll say someone else is coming up. A few people coming out of there with me. I'll say, you go first. I'll watch. I'll go second, and then I'll leave the third person up there, saying, you go last. I don't want to go last. I'll go second, but I don't want to go first. I want to go second, and because I'm in the middle, I've watched someone go, and then someone can watch me go, and they can go. But it's gonna be really fun. Like, I've done an indoor skydive, but it's not gonna be. I put the VR set on a few years ago. I went for an experience at I forgot where it was now. But I went for experience indoors. It was fun. Like, you can't move. Like, if you're move, you can't do that. Of course you can't help that when you're actually in the air, but when you're in this little dome thing, you have to keep still with the guy. If you move it moves him. And then I was lucky enough, if I'm not moving, I can go to the top. He does a little spin with me around it, and that's really fun. So and then I put the VR like you're out of a plane, which is really cool. But nothing compared to probably a natural skydive, which is longer. But I'm quite looking forward to that.
Yeah, the indoor skydiving would probably be fun, but my guts would probably fall out of my butt if I did a real skydive.
Yeah, that's it.
Me and heights is no.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Crohn's is actually okay for me to do it.
Yeah. Well, on my flight down to LA, when we got on, like, the sunset was so pretty, and everybody was like looking out, and they were like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Like, it kind of looked like, the best way I could describe it was like the clouds were like, you could only see clouds, right? But it looked like it was the ocean, but it looked like it was an ocean frozen in time, but it was actually the clouds. It was so pretty. And then the sun's like all red and everything. And I don't know, like half an hour later, we start getting all this wild turbulence, because like coming into LA, like just before Christmas, it was like super rainy and everything, which it's never rainy in LA, but it was when I went. And it felt like it took like an hour for us to actually land, because before we were like even close to landing yet, the whole plane, it gets into this turbulence, and then it just like drops, and everybody was like screaming because we all thought we were gonna die. And now that's my feeling towards flying now is a little bit more like, I used to be very, very comfortable flying. Like, I've been on some long flights before, but that was like, oh, I'm gonna take the train home, and then the train got canceled. So yeah, heights. I look down off of like a big tall ledge, and it's like my whole stomach's just like, nope.
Yeah, I think a good way to prepare yourself for something like that, like if you're a roller coaster person, I suppose everyone's different. Like, some people like roller coasters, but not like going out of a plane. But for me, like, I've got told by people, I asked a person that went on a natural skydive last year, and they have autism as well, and they're based in America, and they I had a conversation, like, called him the other week, and he said he explained to me a little bit about what it's like. For him, it was like a in the air roller coaster. Which I love roller coasters, but when I'm on it, I hold on tight, and on skydive you can't do that. You have to let go. And, I suppose that's a different thing, and I am
Hmm.
I am I am intrigued what it's going to be like, what it's going to feel like. Um, Once the parachute's out, I'll be more relaxed then, because at least
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know I'm going to be getting back like nice and safely. But
yeah.
the worst bit will probably be getting pushed, because they push you out,
Oh,
and
damn.
so they'll push you out of out of the plane, and then you go like you're flying. I think that's what they make it like you're flying at the like there's a guy onto you, but it's more like you're flying like a bird.
I saw a video like a week ago of this bungee jump. It was a bungee jumping video, and like basically the two workers like picked up the guy and like threw him off of the side. And I was just like, can you imagine a job where you're just paid to throw people off of the side of a building? That would
Oh,
be quite the job. Get out your anger.
yeah, yeah. What would job that be?
Oh man. But people paying to like feel like they're about to die.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
I suppose you're excited if you survive, but um, um, like, like I, as lots has gone on in the world, I feel like what you got to lose if something does happen. Like, probably
Right.
like, most percent out of it won't, but yeah, you just never know, do you? Like, pandemics disrupted so many people's lives, and
Well, that combined with, the disease we have, it's
yeah,
unpredictable. We don't know if like I'm like starting to go into a flare right now. I've been out of a flare since my surgery last April, and it's been decently nice. It wasn't perfect, but you can't really predict what's going to happen with it. So it's like, hey, may as well just enjoy life well while we can, and then if we get sick, well, that's shitty, but at least we were enjoying life in between, right? Um,
that's it.
I don't know, like, because I was diagnosed with the Crohn's like basically a year ago, like during the pandemic, right? And
Yeah,
just having that on top of the pandemic, it's like, yeah, yeah, life is short. You don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, like, we're so lucky to be born in the time that we were. We got to grow up in a very, very peaceful time, and healthcare is better than it's ever been. I mean, like 100 years ago, they would have just like cut out our entire intestines and not done it properly, and we'd probably be dead 2 days later. Like I watched a video, it was terrifying. But
yeah.
who was it that did that video? Like, I think it was like Hank Green or something did a video about, like, it might not have been, I don't know, don't quote me on that, but it just kind of is like, hey, like that's my whole thing with like the traveling thing. It's like I don't want like to work a 9 to 5 job and just like everybody's like, oh, we've got to like work to like be happy, and it's like, no, money doesn't make you happy. I'm sorry. Like, I would rather be young and broke and do things that I like doing than be rich and grow old and then have kids and then die having gone broke because I spent all my money on whatever, like a house and a mortgage and taxes. Obviously, you have to pay taxes, but like it's also like, I don't know. There's just society's like, oh, everything's got to be this one way, but it's like there's so many other ways to like enjoy life. I guess you don't have to like do the same thing that everybody else does.
That's it. That's it. Like you say, like you never know what could happen. Like with me, I was diagnosed with Crohn's in October 2017. As you said, you might have heard me say that as you listened to a fair few of the podcasts. But I was diagnosed in 2017, and I can't imagine like you like people getting diagnosed in pandemic times, and it hasn't really improved.
Mm.
Like the world at the minute, and it's hard. like the healthcare and stuff to get appointments, to get seen, to get heard, and when a whole different things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like for me, I was because I definitely had it before the diagnosis, like for quite a while, because I got in 2019, I got like an E. coli infection, and I'm pretty sure that's kind of what triggered it. Because you know, I think I had it before this trip, but I went to India in the summer of 2020, and I ended up in the hospital there, and they diagnosed me with like enteritis, which is like inflammation of the intestines. But it can be acute. It's not necessarily Crohn's disease, and I didn't even realize that they had diagnosed that until like years later when I read the paper. But like, I think it was the end of that year. Like I kind of just ignored it, like the symptoms I was having, and then I was like, no, I can't deal with this anymore. So I went to my doctor. He's like, oh, it's E. coli. Gives me antibiotics. This is a pro tip to everybody. If you are having symptoms, get them checked out. Don't leave them for 6 months, because that is just not a good idea. But so I got that treated kind of at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. And so the infection was gone, all good. And I felt okay for a while, but then I started to feel kind of more and more sick as the year went by. Like like beginning of the year, everybody's feeling like shit, right? Because the pandemic's just hitting. Everything shitty that can happen to most of us probably happened. Like I think anybody can say that. But it kind of put a lot of things on the not noticing. Like, if you're super anxious constantly because there's a pandemic happening, you're not going to necessarily feel your body being an asshole. But by like August of 2020, I was like, I had a friend staying with me, and she's like, yeah, you were like gone. I could not get out of bed. I was sleeping like 12 hours a day. It was no, I was like in constant pain. It wasn't fun. But at the end of that month, my doctor gave me prednisone, which I had no clue what that was. And I try it and I'm like, whoa, this is magical. This is the first time I've ever taken a medication and had it work. Because you know how like you take Tylenol, it's like, oh, it doesn't help. Gravel doesn't help. This is the first time I took a medication and I'm like, oh my God, that did exactly what I wanted it to do. And for me, like I have had like concerns about Crohn's since probably 2017, because my mom also has Crohn's. So it's always been on the back of my mind, but I never had the right symptoms. And I say that with air quotes. So when I took this prednisone, my doctor's like, oh, that probably means you have Crohn's. I'm going to send you to see a GI. And I just brushed him off in my head. I'm like, I'll see the GI, but I don't have Crohn's. I feel fine now. That's what the prednisone is supposed to do. And a bunch of months later, because I think my appointment was like 8 months out, and COVID, it's delaying everything, right? And I made it 6 months, and then I ended up in the hospital just puking my guts out with a partial blockage. And I was in the ER for like 5 days before they actually got me a spot in the hospital. And then it took like 3 more days with like delays. Like they were like, oh, we're going to do it today, like the colonoscopy, to diagnose me. And then they'd be like, oh, no, we can't. We'll do it later today. And then, oh, no, we can't. We'll do it tomorrow. And it was just constantly that until like I had a mental breakdown with one of the nurses. She was just like, she came in, told me that the colonoscopy wasn't going to happen that day. It's going to have to happen tomorrow, hopefully. And I just start sobbing because I'm like, I cannot take this anymore. I'm starving. Like, I'm tired. I don't want to be in the hospital. Like, I just want to find out what's going on. And she's just like, I'm going to do whatever I can to like get you in. And I got in pretty quick after the mental breakdown. That's how you get things sometimes, have a mental breakdown. But after that, they sent me home with prednisone. And here's where it gets crazy. Between early February when I was diagnosed, and April, so that's like 2 months, I went into the hospital a grand total of 14 times. And most of the time I was just sent home. That's between 3 different hospitals. So the first hospital diagnosed me, but they would send me home over and over again every time I went back. The second hospital did absolutely nothing for me. And the last time they sent me home, I had been like puking and everything, and I couldn't stop puking. And they sent me home like being like, oh, well, we've got it under control, because they'd given me nausea meds. But 6 hours later, it started again. And my mom drove me like half an hour to another city to go to a different hospital. But this is a hospital where they had an active COVID outbreak. So that was terrifying. But that hospital did an actual scan and were like, yeah, you need surgery. And I'm like, no shit. Like, I've been into the hospital 12 times so far asking for help, and people are just telling me, oh, it's just anxiety. You're just depressed. It's just your autism. Like, some of the doctors were like, oh, it's because she's autistic. That's why she keeps coming back. And the more they were like that, see, I could go on. I could go so on. Oh man, I'm totally ranting about this, but no, I'll go back to that in a second. But the whole autism aspect of this. But so I had the surgery, which I got a new, because my old GI didn't want me to have it. New GI was like, yeah, you need it. When they cut me open, they're like, yeah, you needed this, like, because I had a full blockage. They cut it out, and solved a lot of problem. I went into remission pretty quickly after that, but I ended up, while I was in this COVID-ridden hospital, catching COVID, like right around time of my surgery. So, and it took them like 13 days to catch that I had it, and I had like probably 100 different medical professionals coming into my room. So it's like just the lack of like proper protocol in like these hospitals was like, some of them were better than others, but some of them were just like, are you kidding me? We're in a pandemic and you're gonna like be this cruel to patients and like send them home and all this, but you're not actually gonna have proper protocols for your staff. Like, because my mom's a nurse too, and she stayed with me the whole time I was in the hospital this time around, because I was, after some of the stuff that had happened at the other hospitals, I refused to go by myself, and she stayed with me the whole time I was there. And she was just like, every time a nurse would come in, she was like, when I actually had COVID, she would be like, they're not doing this right. Like, they're not doing proper protocol for like contagious diseases. And it's just scary to think about, because it's like, it took 13 days for them to notice. I'm sure there's ones that they did not discover, and just like that whole thing. But is me going on and on like this okay?
Yeah, you go.
Awesome. So going back to that bunch of months, like with the whole autism thing, like, oh, that was rough. Because the thing with like hospitals, I don't know what your experience is, but they do not know how to deal with people that are autistic. And it's so upsetting. I ended up in psychiatry probably 3 times when I was in for Crohn's related things. And it made me genuine, like, for probably months, and even still to this day, honestly, like probably more than I realize, it makes me quit. Like, I have, a big scar on my gut. And even when I was like looking at it after my surgery, I was like, is this real? Am I just crazy? Like, because that's how they treated me when I was in the hospital. They're like, a bunch of those times they would be like, oh, you're just psychotic or something. And it's like, what? I literally was just diagnosed, and you guys are gonna have the audacity to say all this stuff. And it's like, the worse, like the more times I went in, and the more they were treating me like that, the more like it became, I don't know a word for it, if it became sort of almost a sensory overload, because like I stopped being able to communicate properly, basically. That's why, because like every time I would talk, nobody would listen, and they would just kind of do all this ridiculous shit. like I don't know if I was just not communicating in a way that worked, but I was in pain, like a significant amount, and they were just chalking that up to, oh, she's she's anxious and autistic and depressed and all of this stuff. And so that's why like I had my mom coming with me, because it's like I obviously can't communicate anything to these people, and they're not going to listen to me. Maybe they'll listen to you in this puke bucket. Because that was kind of my final straw. Like when I went to that last hospital, it's like I had a puke bucket, and I'm like, you know what, mom, take me in a wheelchair in this puke bucket full of like not normal colored puke, and see them like not take me seriously. And I mean, initially they didn't. Like the other patients that were there could tell that I needed help, because there were people that let me go ahead of them in line because it was just like that bad. But like one nurse came up to me and she's like, you need to like chill, because like there's other people here with emergencies and you're not the only one. And I'm just like, I have been in and out of hospital for 2 months. Shut up. And oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's just the whole thing is just frustrating, like with COVID and with the lack of autism like understanding in the medical field. It's I could go on and on.
Yeah. My experience is, because in my hospital, say I have a flare or I have an emergency that I need to
Mhm.
I need to go into hospital. What they call, what probably where you are is probably the ER. For me, it will be the A&E, where I am taken if I am here for an emergency for my Crohn's, and which shouldn't be the case. I've said to many people, and I always say this: I should not. No one who's got a chronic illness or Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, should not be going into an emergency room, where other
I
people
agree
are
with that.
there, where
I
other
agree with that
people,
so much.
yeah, yeah, where people go to, say you've been in an accident, um, and you're injured. That's what people go for that. For us, Crohn's is not an accident. It'd be nice if it was, and that
I wish.
there was a way to get that better. Well, there is for treatment, but I mean a way to get rid of it completely. But that's what people go there for. But like I asked for a breakout room, like a room, because like part of my autism, I don't like being in a room for the people. Like I just don't like that, and I don't like close contact either. And it was very nice and social about when COVID had a, you keep your meetings apart from people. I like that rule. um, but yeah, they did make one, and then all of a sudden it disappeared, and quite recently it's back at like a breakout room, which it's really nice, because a person who unfortunately died at the hospital that I'm at, from the funding, um, like the family got this room for people that just want to be kept that way, or like in COVID, it's very good for that. Like you have a room for
Yeah.
yourself, away from everyone. I know
Yeah.
recently, late last year, I went in there for the first time, and I thought it was great, because that it's winter, people get colds. There's lots of similar things from a normal cold and COVID, um, and it's just ideal for me. And I wish it was done sooner. And you're right, people
Yeah.
don't really understand about autism, because um, it's not like an illness as such. Crohn's is, or ulcerative colitis is. It's I agree that more needs to be done around the world. It looks like. um, about that, because I've talked to people in different places. Like I have a person, we spoke about this exact subject, not about the autism side of things, about the side of things as a whole, with chronic illnesses, and she's based in Belgium, I believe, and is actually Australian. So we talked about that, and it's very poor over there, very poor in Canada, poor for most places. So like that needs to improve, almost like mainstream schools need to improve with their ways of adapting and understanding autistic people. Not all of them, but the ones that who don't, and it's two completely different things, but in the same kind of concept. Just need that understanding of autism, and I say Crohn's as well, because you will find there might be people that you would rather talk to at your hospital. Like you may find you want to go to this specific person. Like I know over here I have IBD nurse who unfortunately left, and it's gone downhill since she left. She was on the ball. Not the others are good, but they're not as on the ball as her, the one who left. So that, like, there's always what you should hopefully find one person you trust, you keep going back to. But in your mind, you know they're not going to be there forever, and you know, like with Crohn's, a lot of it changes, and autism, a lot of it can change throughout life, really.
Yeah. I feel pretty lucky at this stage, like where I live. You know, like I obviously can't really compare it to other places, but like all that chaos that I was talking about, that was like, you know, I've been diagnosed, and I didn't really have like a reliable GI. Like I had a GI, but I would say I am not a fan of him, especially after him telling me, oh, you can just take biologics instead of getting surgery, even though everybody was like, she needs surgery, and like not doing anything to actually get me the biologics. Like my TB test got lost, and it's like, how am I supposed to get on these drugs if you're not going to actually help me get on them? But this same day that, like, you know, I ended up in this hospital. The surgeon came in and told me that I needed surgery. Basically that same day, I talked to my old GI in the morning, and then a few hours later I met my new GI, and he was like, yeah, like, I'll talk to your surgeon. They talked, and I needed it. But he works he basically founded this center called the IBD Center of BC, and basically it's based out of Vancouver, and they have like a bunch of different gastroenterologists and IBD nurses, a psychiatrist and psychologist, dietitians. I think there's like a whole pregnancy clinic attached to it too, with an obstetrician or whatever they're called, and surgeons and everything, all like in that clinic. And it's basically his goal, and the clinic or the center's goal is to you know, make living with IBD in BC better and easier. I wish it was something that was like across the country and in other countries, because I haven't had a lot of experience with the program yet, but it's been very reassuring, like through my remission, knowing that you know, I had I think it was like 6 months after my surgery, I had like a colonoscopy and everything to check up on things. And then he's like, you know, we'll have you do a fecal calprotectin in another 6 months. And I did that last week, you know, just to kind of check up on things. And it's saying that like my levels are going back up, and, you know, it's catching it early. And then, you know, I'm pretty certain that he's actually going to help me deal with that, unlike my previous doctor. So, obviously, you know, it's still a new patient doctor relationship at this point, but from the reputation, I'm like, I feel pretty lucky to have been able to get into that center, because yeah, like I've heard stories from like other people where like they live in like remote parts of Canada with IBD, and they'll have to be like airlifted to a hospital that can actually help them, and they don't have a local GI, and it's just like, that's terrifying. I'm glad that I don't have to deal with that. Like, you know, there's a lot of situations I wouldn't want to be in with this, you know, like there's that, you know, that one girl on Instagram in the Crohn's community, she lives in Malaysia.
Yeah.
I can't remember what her name is, but like that is, I love what she's doing, but like that would be terrifying to be like the only person you know in your country, or like one of the only people you know, like to have this kind of a thing. Like I can't imagine being alone with it. That's one of the nice things about Canada, is like it's got the highest population of people with Crohn's and colitis like in the world, which sucks, because why are we making the Canadians suffer? I thought we were nice people. But It's nice because there's a community. I mean, it's a spread apart community, but it's still
Yeah, yeah.
nice to know that there's people there.
Yeah, there's lots of great people out there that have it, and like I don't know what I'd do if I didn't know anyone else had it. I think I wouldn't be talking about it now.
Oh yeah, it definitely like gets you through like the early days of having it if you find that online community, like finding like the IBD, chronic illness, Instagram communities were the best. Like the Facebook ones are like kind of okay, but they kind of tend to be like people that are a bit older than we
Mm,
are, and it's like some of them are not very nice. So I like to stick with younger
yeah,
people that aren't gonna be mean to me.
yeah. Instagram is the best one, I think.
Yeah,
The best social media app that offers like really good like awareness, create a whole page around it, and you have lots of people doing that, and it's great. And like
yeah,
just seeing, like scrolling daily, like different people in their lives, what they're doing, good days, bad days, and
yeah,
it's really nice. And like people going live sometimes talking about it, and like YouTube, Instagram, and reels they have now on Instagram. And I think it's all great, and just helps and helps you knowing that you're looking on that every day, and you're not alone, because you've got all these people doing all these great things. Like you've got podcasts, you've got events, you've got possibly meeting other people that haven't.
yeah,
I think it's great because you're not alone. But like I didn't know until you told me that Canada was actually the highest
yeah.
out of the world. Um,
I'm not sure if it's Crohn's and colitis or just Crohn's, but I know for sure Crohn's at least. But
okay,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, I
there's a
do.
theory that it's something sugar, but I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It'd be like
I mean,
eh,
nobody knows the cause of Crohn's, so how can they know the cause of like there being more Crohn's in one country than the next?
that is
And it's
bizarre.
also just diagnosis too. Like
Mm,
there's I could bet you that there's probably tons of people like in Africa and Asia and South America that have Crohn's and colitis that don't know it because doctors there don't know about it, and that's pretty sad, honestly. But
yeah,
I feel like it's a combination of, yeah, there's probably more of us in general just because of like just I feel like there is like like they don't know the cause of it, but I feel like just like the diet that we have in countries like ours, like it's we you can't escape like the processed foods and stuff. Like even if you try really hard to eat like a very healthy diet, like there's still going to be stuff in your food that's just not good. And like I feel like that's definitely like a big factor, but at the same time it's like there's not enough known about it to actually be able to say, hey, like we're suffering more than everybody else. Like no, I
mm,
it's complicated, and it's like
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it is, and like yeah, like you say, there's probably the big people out there that have probably got Crohn and aren't diagnosed with it, and they think to themselves, because in the country now they're not knowing, um, depending if they have contacts or on social media from other people that have it,
yeah,
like they might even know, they probably won't know what it is, and like like getting all these pain and for an unknown reason, and like you say, doctors don't know. Like there's countries out there who probably haven't got a clue what Crohn's is, and I didn't when I was diagnosed. I didn't know what it was. I'd
yeah,
kind of lost me who I did to get diagnosed, and lost quite a lot of weight too. That year, and quite painful. Couldn't eat. Annoying it was. Couldn't eat anything.
isn't it?
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
kind of slowly going back into that, not being able to eat very much right now. Not fun times.
Mm,
I'm not a huge eater because like
okay.
we can tie so many things. Like autism and Crohn's are just such an annoying combination because with me being autistic, I have a lot of sensory issues, and I don't eat very much because of that, because food just is not my jam. And then you tie that on to having Crohn's and being like, oh, is this gonna make me sick? Or is this like it's the combination of like, oh, this is gonna bother me sensory wise, but this is going to bother me Crohn's wise, and it's like, what do I eat?
Yeah, I'm quite
um,
sensory too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that you have trouble with food like related to autism, or just Crohn's?
I kind of think that in a way, like I speak to different people and they say like chronic illness or like you get people sometimes with autism that have like chronic pain and stuff, and I suppose they are in a way related to each other in a
Yeah.
way, because you get people that are have chronic and might not have Crohn's, but out there, and I don't think my food is relating to my autism there. Like I'm okay with that kind of things,
Yeah.
still what is really relevant to eating is if I'm eating and um like if I'm eating some food and someone else is making noise, I don't like noise. I don't like loud noise. So
Same.
say I'm eating like a nice meal, not making any noise at all. Well, I might make a like little like a really tiny noise. But then another person in the room is walloping their knife and fork down like they're gonna break the plate. But
It's like the metal on the glass plates
yeah, that's
bother
it.
you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
does. Yeah, it does bother me, and
me too.
I say, can you stop doing that?
Yeah,
Like,
it drives me absolutely, or like even like when like my dad is cooking and like he has the metal pot with like the metal fork or something and he's like scraping and I'm like,
any
this
noise,
hurts.
any noise like that, it's like a chalkboard, isn't
Yeah,
it? Like that, one of the
exactly.
old black chalkboards. Here, that's great. And it is irritating, and then I say, um, and it, and then so some people might joke about it, saying, I suppose who if they joke about saying, what noise, and then like that, but isn't a friendly sound. Like it's funny,
Yeah.
but it's funny because I won't like that, but I'll go to my local football team and I like to cheer them on. but it's kind of different because that's food and like it's anything, and I don't like people that eat with their like make a lot of noise when they're eating, like mouth with no fork as
Yeah,
well.
same.
Like they're eating really loud, and they don't shut their mouth when they're eating. You can see all their food inside
Yeah.
and
No.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I even like just eating around other people is like, I don't like it. And the pandemic has not helped with that. Cause like, I don't know, for me, like I've never really been huge in talking about being autistic because I don't know, it just there's so much stigma attached to it. And like I just like to avoid, being judged and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know, like the pandemic has I don't want to say it's made me more autistic, but it's made me notice more that I am. Like because I guess most of my life I was masking so much that I didn't even know I was masking because it was just so normal for me because that if you're growing up the weird kid, you're gonna try to pretend like you're not the weird kid. And then, I grew up just watching like as a teenager, I'd watch like YouTube videos and all this shit, like trying to figure out how like humans communicate with each other. And then the pandemic comes along and kind of interrupts that because it's like any other skill, like you learn to play the guitar. If you stop playing the guitar for like 2 years, you're gonna probably be pretty rusty. And that's me and fellow humans is I've forgotten kind of how to interact with them. And I'm like, oh wait, I definitely am autistic. Because like I had this diagnosis, when I was 12. I was diagnosed with the Asperger's, and I at first I was like, yeah, okay, I don't really know what this is, but okay. And then as
Yeah,
I got older, it's like I don't really want to identify with this. And then
yeah,
now
yeah,
it's like, you know what? I mean, I feel like everybody excuses like me being awkward now on COVID brain. They're just like, oh yeah, I have COVID brain too. And I'm like, well, this isn't COVID brain, but yeah, we'll go with that. So I can kind of feel more like myself almost, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. I was diagnosed when I was 9.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wasn't. I was quite confused at the time, and then I thought it was all bad, and I wasn't confident about anything. If I needed help, I wouldn't ask, and it
Same.
was it was hard, and I I pretend that I'm doing work, like I pretend I know what I'm doing,
Same.
when I don't. And it's just because I don't want anyone to think that I'm dumb about a certain thing. Like if it's a classroom, like they're all doing
Yeah.
well, I would just go along with it because I wouldn't want to be like you say, judged or that's what I was doing at that time. But as the years got on, I got more confident about doing things. I went into mainstream to start with, and then went over to a special school, which gained my confidence there. But going to the special school over the years, and then like now, I've got more confident, and now I seem to think I don't really care what other people think of me, of like my autism or Crohn's, like
Hmm.
because you can get judged for either, can't you? Um, and
I'm proud of them.
yeah. Yeah, I'm proud of them, and I don't care what you think. If you don't like it, go away.
I sometimes like to think of like, this might sound mean towards autism, but I sometimes like to think of like my Crohn's as like my digestive system as being autistic. It just doesn't know how to do its job, and that's like me.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
no, my autism's contagious to my own body. I'm completely joking. I'm not serious with that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, I think about that sometimes.
yeah. Because I suppose it's a tough period of time when you get diagnosed with autism, and then it's a tough period of time when you get diagnosed with Crohn's, and when you think like you're kind of settling and being an autistic person, when you still are, but and then years down the line, um, you get diagnosed with a condition that is an illness, and it's I wouldn't say in a way it can be worse. Well, it can be worse than another, depending on what way you think of it. But I always think that autism, um, like there will be people out there who think autism is a disease because lots of people get it, or with autism, and you get diagnosed, you think I've got this, and well, that's like you don't. Depending on what kind of autism you have, um, it's the way you look at it, I suppose. And like at the time when you're diagnosed with autism, you think, "What's this? Why? Why me?" It's a similar situation when you're diagnosed with Crohn's. What's this? Why me? And then you bring the two together, and then you're choosing if you want to talk about them. Like you can maybe choose about if you want to talk about Crohn's or autism. Some scenarios both. Maybe if you're at workplace and for them to get a better understanding about you, say I'm autistic and Crohn's, and hopefully they understand and know what it is. But even if they did, you probably would explain what it is to them anyway. Um, but yeah, I think it's always a tough part getting diagnosed, but once you've had something for a couple of years, it's better, it's more easier, um, more confident. And I actually think the Crohn's or the pandemic has helped with that confidence. I think for me,
Oh
um,
yes.
ha- having more time. Um, like I didn't speak about mine straight away. I was in year 11 at school when I done over Crohn's, and I was in exams and stuff, and I had to explain a little bit what's going on, even though I didn't know it myself. And then I didn't really create any pages then. It was more 2020, a few years down the line. Pandemic starts. Look what a podcast is. Create that. I'll speak to myself for a couple of episodes, and then carry on. Read a little bit more about a podcast. What is a podcast? What do you do on a podcast? And I think you've got people. You speak to different people. Oh, that's pretty cool. Let's speak to different people, hear about them, and meet new people. And yeah, it's ever since then. And I didn't think it was good. Like as most of us, we didn't think COVID was going to last this long. And I suppose I didn't think a podcast would have probably lasted this long as well. But I kind of think I want to keep it going just to speak to different people. And it's more of it's like a hobby of
Yeah.
mine. It's like hobbies. Like you might like Harry Potter or something. It's like a hobby of yours, and that goes on with the autism, doesn't it? Like hobbies is like traveling. You said you like to travel. Uh,
Yeah.
that's a hobby of yours. You might talk about it a lot to different people. You might not. Um, but yeah, it all relates into one big thing. Crohn's and autism.
Yeah. And like I find it so weird that like you're the first person I've met with both. because like I've read that like it's fairly common for like people to have both, but like where are they? I guess they don't want to talk about it. Like I don't know, I feel like it's a lot like some I don't know, like there's some people that are very confident talking about autism, but I feel like there's probably a lot of autistic people with Crohn's out there that like will be open about maybe their Crohn's but not their autism or vice versa. I don't know, like, because I feel like it depends on how you view yourself and how you feel like other people view you. Because both of them, you know, they're so stigmatized, and some people might be like, "Oh, I'm too embarrassed to talk about Crohn's because poop," and nobody wants to hear that, but other people are like, "I don't wanna talk about autism because I don't want people to know that I'm different," but they'll be okay talking about the other maybe? Like, I don't really know, or just they don't wanna talk about either? I don't know. Or they're younger? I have no clue. Like, I read an article too that, like, people I think I think it's more likely from what I was reading that parents with IBD are more likely to have autistic children. So, like, that made a bit of sense, but again, like, haven't really come across a lot of that. Actually, not autism specifically, but I actually knew somebody in high school who had ADHD who had a parent with Crohn's, so
Hmm.
I guess it's not, like,
Hmm.
totally out there, but
Yeah.
it's just interesting.
Yeah.
You see the
Yeah.
studies and you're like, "Where's the real world evidence?"
Yeah, that's it. Like when I was at school, like I was in a special school with people with autism. I get diagnosed with Crohn's. I've got Crohn's. And no one in there has autism, but some people have heard of it. You'll get that a lot nowadays. I've heard of my friend has Crohn's, and but later on, a friend of mine, sister has ulcerative colitis, and um, so yeah, it's either one or the other. I find like you either have autism, you either have Crohn's, and it's pretty rare on the podcast or speak to someone that actually has both, which
Yeah, yeah.
it's very interesting as well. Just to speak to you and speak to someone that has both, and how
Yeah,
how you
definitely.
deal with both.
It's definitely an interesting combination.
Yeah, who could have said it with autism and Crohn's, not just one. But at one point in our lives, it was like probably for a long point. Um, like you getting diagnosed at 13, I think you said, with autism, and
Yeah, true.
I got diagnosed at 9 with autism, and I was 16 or so. I think I was about 16, turning 17 when I was diagnosed with Crohn's.
How long did your diagnosis actually take? Like, when you were diagnosed with autism, like, when did they first actually start trying to get that done for you?
I think my mum, my parents kind of noticed more about that than me, um,
Mm,
because I was pretty young. I was, and I
yeah, yeah.
went to London, to go Great Ormond Street Hospital it was, and having all these tests done. Uh, I don't remember it all, but I remember getting told that I was there quite frequently for probably a long period of time, and it did take a while for autism diagnosis. And it was, when I eventually got told when I was autistic, thinking, why? What is it? And I'm autistic. What's that mean? Am I? And I get told you just maybe find things a little bit harder, more slower at certain things, and which I am, and like I might get shy. Um, like like for example, if I'm meeting someone new, it's kind of different on a podcast because you're kind of talking from the off. But like if you're meeting someone new, like in the public, for example, um, it'll be quite shy, and I wouldn't kind of fully go into the conversation, unless it was
Yeah.
a flowing conversation. So if I'm talking to someone that is like just one word answers, it can be kind of hard to start a conversation that way. And like what you say next, you kind of have to think about it. But if when
Yeah, yeah.
you speak to someone that is having a flowing conversation, or I wouldn't mind starting one, but I never used to start a conversation. I always got waited till another person started the conversation, and I'll just wait till they started it, and I would still
Yeah,
be
same.
shy. I would still be shy, talking about whatever we were talking about. But that was my autism diagnosis. It was like a period of time and then learning. always learning about it. And for the Crohn's, it took. I know with Crohn's, you get people that diagnosed takes a long time. I know it's a long time for autism as well. Like, I suppose I'm quite fortunate I didn't have to wait years for a diagnosis of autism and Crohn's. But for Crohn's, it took not too long. I had to push to get appointments though. Well, my parents really did, because I was unaware. It was a burning feeling in my stomach. Well, before all this, but straight to the year of 2017, that year, so I say 16 is a birthday. That is a big birthday. Isn't it? Like, when you're 16, it's a big one. I remember doing go-karting this year, but looking back at photos, I lost lots of weight that year. And then all of a sudden, I'm okay for my birthday. My birthday was September time. Did go-karting. My mum noticed I looked really pale. I looked really thin. At the time, I thought I was fine. I was okay. Go-karting. Come third in the end. And then what happened? It wasn't long after that. It got worse. Like, after that, shortly after my birthday, I was struggling to eat things. And then I had a burning feeling in my stomach, and it was carry on going. And then one night I couldn't sleep. And this batch shots when I was talking about getting sent to the A&E or the ER, because that's where I got sent, and I'm waiting there in pain, in my stomach, unaware what this is. And then I'm staying overnight. I stay overnight, which is horrible. What most people will know, if you have Crohn's, or it's horrible staying overnight in a hospital. When you're in a room where you get moved a lot, and I always like to stay in one room. And like, being autistic, you don't want to move. Like, you just want to stay in the same room. And actually, not too long ago, I had a meeting with someone about that, and like how it can be commentated in hospitals. It needs to improve. That does. But at that time, I was in there getting tests done, and the pushing needed to be pushed, because when we had an idea what was going on, a test was going to be done with the gastro people, and they said, we're gonna have to wait next month. Come back next month. And then my mum and family were saying, no, can't do that. I'm in pain. If I wait in pain any longer, something's gonna happen. I can't wait any longer. This pain was horrible. I couldn't explain it. I went to school in this pain, even though I knew I was going to catch up. I was in year 11 at the time. It was in exams, and that, like, stress is another symptom of Crohn's as well. At the time, I didn't know that, so I was stressing about doing things when I would have already had Crohn's. Even though I wasn't diagnosed at the time, I would have had Crohn's probably straight away when I felt the burning fame in the first place. Possibly when I lost the weight early the year. So I probably had it much earlier. I was diagnosed in October, but getting to the diagnosis, I had lots of I ended up getting that appointment, had a colonoscopy, and he said at the end of that colonoscopy, because in the UK, I know it's quite curious, and around like different parts of the world, you actually go to sleep for a colonoscopy, which over here we don't, and we had to have that. We take this.
Same. We don't.
I don't, and because I know so some people I spoke to in America have gone to sleep, and I kind of questioned that. I find that a bit odd, because we don't go to sleep over here. We just stay awake.
I was told that like, because I asked them about that, and they were like, for people your age, we don't like to like put you guys to sleep, because like it's not good for your health. Like it's and it's like, I guess it's generally less painful when you're younger, because like when you're older, everything's all messed around. But after surgery, they move your stuff, all your intestines around, so it like makes it more painful. But it's still not the worst in the world. But I'm kind of a little bit envious of the Americans, I guess.
Because like, I speak to them, and they're asleep, and they don't know that I'm awake, and I don't know they're asleep. And first time I spoke to someone who said that to me, I was quite shocked about that, and I didn't say anything actually. We just went through the conversation, because I didn't want to like say anything about that at first. But then when I saw more people saying the same thing, I had to ask different questions. But going on for like the diagnosis. I had that colonoscopy. I had the prep, the horrid prep. I had it both ends, like one after the other, kind of. And I got told, because I had a sedation, I'm hearing that I've got Crohn's. I hear the word Crohn's. I go out, say to Mum, I've got Crohn's. And funny thing is, consultant comes out and says, you've got Crohn's. And I don't know what Crohn's is. I just heard the word Crohn's coming up. And I was thinking, hang on, did I hear this right? Did I hear this correct word? Because I've never heard of it. It's odd word. That's what I spelt wrong at the first place, as we all probably did. And then he said, what he said was, he said, I was lucky enough that I was diagnosed at the time I was, because I would have needed surgery. And it's a good job. Everyone pushes, and everyone needs to push, because to get appointments, even though there'll be professional people that work in that area, you still need to push on what you want. And confidence. Being an autistic person can be hard. That part of things.
The story you tell about your diagnosis, though, like mine, if I didn't have a mom with autism, mine probably would have been the same, because like they told me before I went in for my colonoscopy that I probably wouldn't remember anything. They were wrong. I remember the whole thing, but you know, like I'm watching them poking around in my intestines on the screen, which was super cool. It's like seeing inside yourself. You don't get to do that very often. But then I hear him say, oh yeah, we're probably looking at Crohn's. I just broke down crying, because like all the nurses were like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, you can get it treated, most people don't need surgery, which was not true. That was a lie. But I wasn't crying because like, oh, it's Crohn's. I was crying because like I have family with it that have like not had a great time with it, and it's like, it just bothers me that they like were like, oh, don't be upset about it. It's like you don't know what a person's going through. But what was I just thinking of? I forget. I'm amazed it took that long for me to start forgetting things. Me lately, I forget everything.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been getting worse this year.
Yeah.
Oh, there were so many thoughts I had while you were talking, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to cut him off though. Oh, I was going to ask earlier, because you were talking about like being stuck in like the ER for a long time while in pain. In the UK, do you guys, in like your A&E as you call it, do you guys have all beds, or are people like made to like be in recliners instead of beds?
I haven't actually seen like there possibly is like recline, but it's more of a bed that's uncomfortable.
Like you know, like when you get like an infusion, like those chairs.
Oh yeah,
ER.
Yeah, you are like if you're not in the bed, like it's easier to move depending how bad the situation is. They do have those, yeah. Like I went for a sigmoid ostomy September last year, and that was my for like the second one I had, other than like the colonoscopy. I was taken in like a chair there and back, and it might have been a bed, but yeah, they do that.
Yeah, because when the two times that I was the most sick in the hospitals, well, the first time I spent 5 days in like one of those recliner chairs, and the time that I ended up having surgery, I spent probably 3 to 5 days in a recliner, like begging them to give me a bed, but they're like, oh, we don't have any beds available. And it's like, oh, what torture. Like that's the thing that bothers me about people that are like, oh, COVID doesn't like kill that many people. It's like, but COVID does torture other people, like, because that hospital was so full of people with COVID, right? And it was overflowing, and they didn't have enough beds for everybody. Like the COVID wing was over full. But then, you know, you get somebody like me that's coming into the hospital that's super sick, but they only have like, in the one section of the ER I was in, they had like, I don't know, maybe like 4 beds. There was one that was in like a small room for like isolating people, and then there were like 2 or 3 on the other side, and they would bring you in from like the waiting room. They'd put you in one of these beds, and then the doctor would come and see you, and then they'd move you to a recliner for the next several days. And it's like, you know, they give you that false hope that like you finally got a bed after all this waiting, and then no, they take it away. It's It was not fun times. I really hope I don't have to go back to the hospital, man. Like,
Yeah,
ugh,
yeah,
avoiding it at all costs.
yeah. I actually went last week. Yeah,
Mm,
I went last week to the hospital and for a blood test. Nice catching up with the with the staff because they know who I am. As depending on how big your hospital is, mine know me, and we had a nice catch up. At the time, there was a storm in the UK. Where I live, like a storm with like the trees were like falling down and stuff. So we had a nice catch up like that because at a pub, like a tree fell in the road, so
mhm.
blocking things up. So we had a nice catch up. But yeah, I suppose it's nice going to the hospital when you haven't been there for a while. It's nice catching up, but it's not nice going all the time.
Yeah, no. Well, it's like going into a hospital when it's planned and like, you have like an appointment or something like that doesn't really bother me. It's like when you go in and it's like you're waiting in the ER because it's not a classic emergency, but it's an emergency to your body and you can't get in to see a doctor any sooner. It's,
That's it.
that's what I don't like the ER and all of that, you know.
That's it. Does because you said your mum's got Crohn's as well. Does
Yeah, yeah.
was she diagnosed around a similar age than you was, or is it more recent for her?
Well, for her, different era,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
she she had it quite complicated and unfortunate. So when like she was a teenager, they thought she was anorexic, and which ended up making her way sicker. I She definitely would have had it like when she was 15. I don't know if she was diagnosed back then. Like at one point she told me she was diagnosed in like I think 1989. But I don't know exactly. And I know that she definitely would have had it a long time before that. But I mean, like, previous generation, you talk to anybody that is like diagnosed, like, in the previous century, like they're gonna have like the same horror stories of being diagnosed and, not getting good treatment because treatment wasn't the same. There wasn't the same awareness. They didn't have stuff like biologics and, they surgically remove the inflammation instead of cutting it to go down, which is terrifying because, like get inflammation. Doesn't need to be cut out. It can be treated with medicine, but yeah, yeah. So she was like, I mean, with both of us, it's really hard to say when either of them started, but I would say like for her, it started when she was probably a teenager, and for me, I was at some point when I was a teenager. Like I think that looking back at like my childhood, like because for me, like how most people with Crohn's get the diarrhea, right?
yeah, yeah.
I never got that, which is partly why I didn't get diagnosed sooner. So I had chronic constipation going all the way back to like my early childhood, and I'm like, like that could have been completely unrelated, but at the same time, it's like, like I was a tired kid, and it's like, I could have been slow because I'm autistic, but I also could have been not able to keep up because there was something deeper going on. It's really hard for me to say. Like I didn't have
Yeah.
anything that was like serious enough that it's going to get diagnosed until like 2019 to when I was actually diagnosed. But it definitely could have been something that was underlying a lot sooner. But yeah, it's really hard to say. That's why research is good, and there's a lot of research going on. So hopefully they figure out ways to diagnose people earlier so things can get caught before they get bad, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like I have fistula. So
Yeah.
I have that as well. And like on the werewolves at first, I went to like doctors. She went look up there because she said she was uncomfortable and it wasn't her place to do that. But she could have. She had like a right to do it. But I think she was more uncomfortable than me, and that went on longer. And I think it got worse because it might have gone if she saw that and see something was there, and something might have been resolved a little bit sooner than waiting to see my consultant a couple of weeks later, to check. So I wasn't very good by her, but yeah, I have that as well. Like, does anyone in your family have autism like you?
No, not a diagnosis, but there's a lot of
Okay.
other various things, mental health and
Mm.
similar. Like I know that I have I'm not going to say which relatives specifically because I don't want to like
Yeah,
have
of
them
course.
process it, be like they're talking about me. So I have
Yeah.
relatives who have like different mental health issues, but I have ones that also I think have like ADHD and
Mm.
other learning disabilities. And I don't know, like I look at certain family members and I'm just like, you're on the older end of things, so like obviously your generation doesn't get diagnosed as often as my generation, but I have a feeling that if you were in my generation, you would have been diagnosed with something along the similar lines, you know what I mean? I just happened to be I don't know how to put it. Um like I wasn't really a behavioral problem at school, but I was a behavioral problem at home. So like my mom wanted to deal with that, but then I mean I look at the behavior of other people and it's like, as an adult, like you know what, you might be too. But I'm not obviously a doctor, so I can't diagnose people. But
Yeah.
autism is such a spectrum, right? So I mean, it's possible, but there's nobody diagnosed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, it is. It's hard for me to get diagnosed because it's not as well. Crohn's isn't visible and autism isn't, but it's yeah, it's hard, isn't it? There are probably people out there that have got both and haven't got diagnosed or done
Oh yeah,
anything.
I watched. Have you watched that video on YouTube? It's always popping up in my feed, like the history of autism. It's
No,
got like the video. I'll have to like send it to you after, but it's got like a big like rainbow like infinity thing on it, and it just says
okay.
history of autism. I can't remember the YouTuber that did it, but I watched that I think a couple of days ago, and like I forgot what I was going to talk about again. I forgot where I was going. What was it? What were we talking about right before I started talking about that? Because there was a point I was going to make.
I remember. I
I don't
forgot.
remember either. No, I like watched that video and it's talked about some stuff, and I can't remember what that stuff was now because it just talked about the history of autism, but there was something specific that I was going to bring up, but I can't remember it now. Ugh.
No. Yeah, if it comes back, just say it.
Oh man, I'm amazed that hasn't been me the entire time we've been on this podcast, because like that what you just saw there, that has been me like every single flipping day for the past since this year started. It's like,
Yeah.
what was I thinking a second ago? Oh, I'm gonna think about something else now. It's kind of scary because it makes me think of that. Oh, did you read like 1984, the book,
No.
George Orwell?
No. No. I haven't.
Have you have you heard of like Fahrenheit something something something? I can't remember the numbers.
Yeah. I might. Yeah. I think I know what you're getting. Yeah.
So the Fahrenheit, whatever the numbers were, the podcast listeners are gonna be like listening to this and be like, that, but
Yeah.
I can't remember what the numbers were. It was like
Yeah.
four something something. But in that book, there's a character. It was so long ago that I read this. I don't remember the characters' names or the story. I just remember this one particular thing about the book. There was this character that like basically like the laws in the society were like something along the lines of like, if your brain works a certain way and you think, you have to have like this thing in your ear that like beeps and distracts you from being able to think every like so many seconds. Like if you have like a prolonged thought, you can't, because it'll just distract you from that. And I'm
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, my brain is doing that to me. Is that what society's done to me? Like just naturally progressed to like that kind of dystopian, like, what was I just thinking?
Hmm.
It's a terrifying prospect, but It's fun. It's very fun.
Definitely. No, definitely. Um, like a few more things I like to talk about. Is there like how's like your mental health and like been through the pandemic, like the current pandemic?
Mental health, chaotic. Well, like, man, because I mean, I I'm unconsciously like a lot more of a sensitive person than like a I'm like a sensitive person to other people's stuff, but like the Crohn stuff is like made me realize that it's even more on a subconscious level than I realized. So when I see other people like suffering, it affects me physically. And I don't know, like very early on in COVID, like I ended up being ghosted by my ex for a very long time, which that's not a fun time to be having like right during the beginning of a pandemic when you're isolating and then so that kind of put me through like a lot of anger early on in the pandemic. That and like like I don't know, a few weeks into the pandemic, I had been me and my mom were doing a lot to try and help other people during it, and we put together this package for this 2-year-old girl that has leukemia. And it's this kid that doesn't get to go to school, and she's like having to like be super isolated because if she gets COVID, who knows what's going to happen, right? She's a 2-year-old with leukemia. And I don't know, just like the chaos of like people not being very conscientious of like other people early on, just like after seeing that kid and like thinking about what it must be like for her and her parents, like just to see other people's behaviors, just like it made me super angry like early on in the pandemic. And that I feel like had like a major impact on that one summer where like I had the Crohn's happening, but I didn't know it. And like even just that, like being that sick, like I was just I felt like at that point in time, like 2020, I felt like I was almost like two people. Like there was this part of me that was like me, like this good caring person that cares about people and wants to do good in the world. And then there was this like evil alter ego that came out, and like she just wanted chaos and she hated everybody and she didn't give a flying shit because why should she, right? Because everybody's being assholes, so why should she be nice? And it was partly because my body's out of control, right? And it's like I don't know what's going on. And it it was a weird experience, but that was my early pandemic stuff. And then the going through the being so sick, going in and out of hospital, that definitely took its toll. Like I became super confident initially when I was diagnosed, and then after it's like them just telling me that that was crazy and all this stuff. It like I said, it made me feel like I was crazy. So after my surgery and everything, I went through several things. Like I went through a lot of like feeling like, do you ever just like have like that feeling of like nothing's the disassociation? Like I had a lot of that. Like I'd look at my scar and be like, no, I didn't just have major surgery. I don't have Crohn's. Like none of this is real. Like I went through that and like, because after my surgery, like I know this is talking more about the Crohn's than the COVID, but it
Yeah,
all like is the
yeah,
same for me.
yeah,
After my surgery, like I hadn't seen what my body looked like for quite a few weeks, like because I'd been in the hospital and I hadn't wanted to really get out of my bed, and I couldn't get out of my bed after my surgery. And when I finally did, and like they had started taking off some of the tubes and stuff, and I was able to move around more, I went to change my gown for the first time in like probably like 2 weeks. Like I'd been wearing the same gown since after my surgery, I think, or yeah, since before my surgery. And I finally, go into the washroom, take it off to get changed and wipe myself down. And I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, uh-uh. Like my body had changed so much. Like I couldn't see the scar, but like I could just see like my body, like, like I had lost 50% of my muscle mass before the surgery because I was so malnourished, and all my skin was just hanging off. as like I'd never seen my body look like that before. And just this huge wave of like body dysmorphia came over me, and I was like, this isn't my body. I'm back to like the whole disassociation thing. It's like I I felt like I was like it didn't feel like it was me. I don't know. Like I've always had like body image issues, but like after that surgery, it's like I had such a disconnect from my body. It was a scary time, and you know, I I did the opposite of what most people with Crohn's do after that. I gained a lot of weight. And then that sucked, adds to more body image issues. And because like at that point, it's like you've just had surgery, you've been told that you're crazy so many times, and you're living during a pandemic, and it's like it just kind of piles on. And then this year, oh, isn't this year just great for our mental health, huh? Like
Yeah.
adding a potential World War III going on, like that that came at not a good time for me, because I got uh
Yeah.
a week and a little bit ago, like I had my stool test done, right? And then a few days later, I wake up, because I wasn't paying that much attention to like what's going on out there, because it's like it doesn't really affect me at this point. Like I'd heard that there was some conflict going on between Russia and Ukraine, but
Yeah.
I wasn't really paying attention. And then I wake up and I check my emails like I usually do in the morning, and I see that somebody in Russia had hacked one of my Instagram accounts. I was like, wait, no. And I get out of bed, I go to my mom, and I'm like, so Russia just hacked my Instagram account. And she's like, watching the news. And she's just like, I didn't think they'd start doing that soon, because I guess they had said that Russia was going to start hacking people, which I think they've been doing it for a while. But and then she's like saying how like they invaded a few hours ago, and that was how I woke up. And I think that day, like the days before, in that like a few days before that, like this had started, like I'd go to bed every day, and like I'd have like pain in my gut, and like as soon as I tried to relax, I was in pain. But like the day that happened, like with the whole invasion, there, like everybody's like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, nuclear, oh my gosh, World War III, this is like,
Yeah.
and I have friends that are like panicking, and it's like, dude, we're literally like on the opposite side of the world right now. I think it's not quite something to be that terrified about yet, but I think everybody also is,
Yeah.
valid in being that terrified. But
Yeah.
like it just it it hit me really hard, because um it's like we've gone through this pandemic for the past 2 years, and then you think about this idea of like having an actual world war, and like if that were to happen, maybe we never go back to what it was before the pandemic. And I don't want to like be all
No.
morbid on your podcast, but like I went to bed that night, and my body was just like pain everywhere.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine because
Tanking some fun,
yeah, because
Yeah.
it's taken over, hasn't it? The
Oh
situation.
yeah,
It's
it's like
taken over.
all of
Like you
social
don't.
media. You
Yeah.
can't avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't avoid it. Like you don't hear anything about the pandemic now. Really.
Yeah.
Like on the news, it's all about this, and like I feel like watching it can make you feel worse, but watching it is giving you
What else to do?
information. Like yeah, but what
And
else
like
can
at the
you?
same time, like I don't want to be like, oh yeah, social media is a coping mechanism for me, but scrolling through social media has become an unfortunate coping mechanism for me. Therapy is expensive, but
Yeah.
then you get like scrolling through it, and you're like, oh shit, this is all the stuff that's triggering me, but it's also my coping mechanism, so it's kind of like feeding on itself.
Yeah.
And it's just it's exhausting. But
Yeah.
no, like my Crohn's symptoms have just basically been getting worse since then, and it's like,
Yeah.
ugh, this sucks. It's like I've been making all these plans for like my future, and it's like
So.
I'm like, ugh, I'm not supposed to plan things, but I want to plan things.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I know what you mean, because before the whole pandemic, I did a coaching, a football coaching course to be a football coach, and
Mhm.
that had to be put on hold to like a coach who coached me when I was younger reached out to if I wanted to work there, and I couldn't because of the pandemic. And now, like you think, like it gets a lot worse, and like you say, a possible like there's a war going on, like with Russia and Ukraine, and it's hard. Like being a Crohn's patient, having Crohn's, we getting diagnosed, we all thought the worst. Most people would. We always think the worst, and you're gonna think of most people will probably have, if like now, like you're gonna think the worst, like Russia, what Russia are doing over in Ukraine. You see every day, like how sad it is, and like what's going on over there, and
Yeah.
like what the president, the what Putin's doing in over there in Russia, and like you hear about like the threat of nuclears, and as we've recorded this episode, it's only hearing that a couple of days ago. It might have even been yesterday, where we heard that they're on high alert, as we record, and that's scary. That's scary because it only takes only one,
Yep.
and Russia, they might have the most, but the most doesn't make any whatsoever difference because we have one, like most countries do have one nowadays. It's so much different to when it was World War Two. World War Two, you have like countries connecting now. You have a European Union, and like no one can go over there and help Ukraine. Hence why people are sending weapons. Like you've got Germany sending weapons. The first time they've done that since World War Two.
Yeah.
You've got us, I think, so well, we might solve things, and the thing why countries are holding back because of much as mad Putin of Russia is, um, like it's like you don't want to do something to him, but and then you think to yourself, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Is he only saying this because he's getting nervous? Because as you think about it,
Exactly.
he's getting nervous because you've got America not happy with it. You've got all these countries who are against it, and like you've got in sports now, you've got Russia, not allowed to play in sports, but kicked out of the World Cup, kicked out of sport and things. And I do feel sorry for the people living there in Russia because it's different
Yeah,
over
I mean,
there.
like,
It's
you see
different.
people in Russia now, like, protesting this whole
Yeah,
thing, and it's like, those people, like, in Russia, it's illegal to, like, publicly protest like that, and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah. I saw the other day
those
on
people
the
are gonna
news.
end up in jail or dead, and they're doing it anyways, so it's like, they don't want it any more than we do, it's just a rich asshole named Putin that wants this, and it's like, I hate rich people sometimes. They're not all bad, but this one is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because if you think about it, it's very hard to explain what's going on because to people. But I read something yesterday, which was explained it very good. It's like you've got Russia, and then you've got little Ukraine, and then like 8 years ago I think it was 8 years ago they split into two separate countries, and then you've got Russia who want the land of Ukraine because they think it's rightfully theirs, and them taking that, it's almost like you got Russia's the out of all this we've got UK friends, America friends, Germany friends, Holland friends. I can name all the friends. Like how to explain it easier. So you got the friends, and then um you got all the friends, and then you got the bully in Russia trying to threaten like the rest, saying if you don't back off, I'm gonna put a nuke over in your country. I'm gonna do that. I've put them on high alert, and this is why I say so. He possibly could, but really, would he be that silly? Because I know he is Putin on the table. He will sit away from the people in his room because he doesn't want to catch COVID. Because there has to be more than one person pushing that button to
Well, the
to,
thing right
to
now,
do it.
like, with
Yeah,
the whole situation is, like, they were saying, like, from what I read, like, he's being pushed into a corner right now. Like, everybody's against him. Like, even China was like,
yeah,
"Oh, shit, he needs to chill. You need to, like, chill, because like, it isn't good for them either." And, so, I mean, I just think about it, like, it could go one of 2 ways. Like, either he could be like, "Oh, shit, I should probably stop," or he's gonna, be pushed into this corner. And I mean, what happens like when you like squeeze a container of compressed gas? It explodes. And, Putin could either be, oh, I shouldn't do this, or he's gonna be that compressed gas.
It's like in a situation like going back to like the friend and the bully, like you got like the friend, for example, is going to getting bullied by the friend, and the friend's going to get really annoyed if it keeps going on this long. Hang on a minute, I've got a friend of a friend coming at me, and then another friend coming at me, and another friend, and I'm going to think, what have I got to lose? Like now I've got all these friends going at me, and then you think, because they all he has to get on. Of course, he gets on with the people he works with, so they all have to make a decision what they're going to do. But like, if you do that, if you do one on one country, that country's going to fight back. They're not just going to leave that, are they? So it's like, for example, if they do that at one country, they're going to do it another country, and then it's done to another one, and then Russia going to do another one, and then, like as you say, the world could be no more. Which is why it's very silly what he's doing, and it kind of needs to stop. And as we're going back to mental health side of things, it's very hard, and like being a Crohn's person, but having autism on top, and the coronavirus, we all thought that was bad enough, and still's here. It's still here. Like I know some people may forget it is here. It's not gone. But you kind of think in your mind, if there's going to be a war, why should we be careful of the pandemic now? If that's gonna happen, but fingers crossed. By the time this goes out, this episode, this will just be.
Hopefully, it'll be over.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Yeah, a couple months down the line, when like I say, a couple of, well, as you're speaking to people hearing it now, you'll hear it now. But this, of course, the date we're saying it at the end of February. This is filmed the 28th. The
28th, 2020.
Yeah, so 28th.
It's 2022, not 2020.
Yeah.
I'm still that far behind.
It was pretty cool. Yeah.
A year to catch up with time. Like I was stuck in March 2020 for like a solid year. I swear. I don't know if I was doing one, but it took me so long to actually catch up the date.
Yeah. And like with that like it was actually quite cool, because we had on the 22nd of February this year, the 22nd of the 2nd, 22. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, just to finish off, is there anything else you would like to say? Maybe like a supportive message just to finish. Maybe it could be about Crohn's, autism, or just our talk as a whole, if you can.
It's been a very interesting talk.
Yeah.
Talked about lots of things.
Definitely.
Anything about them? Yeah, I mean, like, if you have Crohn's and autism, like, hit us up. Like, I think me and Mason would both like to hear from you. I'm on Instagram, like, as Makayla Goldsmith. Yeah, and I mean, like, if you have either or any other, thing, like, talk about it with people, because I mean, if we don't talk about these things and normalize them, like Mason's doing here on this podcast, like, how do we be accepted in society? Like, all of us that talk about it, we all talk about like how we've had like these rough like times, like with diagnosis, or just experiences in life being misunderstood and everything. But when there's more awareness and there's people talking about those things, then they'll be less misunderstood, and maybe somebody out there's listening to this and they resonated with some of the symptoms that we've talked about, and they'll be like, oh, maybe I have this, and they'll go talk to their doctor. And, if you do have symptoms, like I said this earlier, like if you're sick, don't leave it for 6 months. Go see a doctor. Like if you feel like you're struggling in some way physically or mentally, like don't leave it for a long time, because if you leave it, it could be nothing. It could just go away on its own, but it could also turn into something that affects you for the rest of your life. And you know, that sucks. You don't want that, and you want to stay as healthy physically and mentally as you can. You know, even if you do have something, you can still stay as healthy as possible. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's some I like some really good advice there, okay, and I totally agree. And just on a final note from me today, I just want to say like about the war. It is very like upsetting and distressing. And I think any advice from me is I'm not going to say don't worry about it because that's a silly thing to say. We're all worried what could happen, but like with the news, it can affect your mental health. Watching it and seeing those scenes on the telly, and which is why I kind of, for myself, I limit myself. Or maybe before I go to bed, I do look at it. Maybe because I'm a night owl in the middle of the night for me. um, but yeah, I get the notifications on my phone anyway, so it's kind of, I suppose that's a better way if you want the news. If you don't, just switch the telly off because it is distressing and like fingers crossed we'll all be okay. And like I'm a positive person. Like I try to be like that kind of person. Or like as you can, people who listen quite often to the podcast, you see that, and like it's a good way to be. And even though we will like anything like getting like talking earlier, getting diagnosed with autism and Crohn's, you do think the worst. You think the worst, and at the moment we're going to think the worst about what's happening. But for fingers crossed, it doesn't go that far, and we'll be fine in a few months' time. Um, it'll be okay, or I hope sooner than a few months' time. But these things take time. It's like a diagnosis. Um, let's speak in a diagnosis way. At the moment, there's been a diagnosis of war between two countries in the world, and that takes time. That takes time to heal. It, it takes time
Yeah.
to. I think that's a good way of putting it. It takes time to heal from a war. Like Crohn's is a war sometimes. It takes time.
Yep.
Like Makayla says she's in a flare at the moment, but that may take time for her to get in a place where she is more better. So it's going to take time, and if it does, if it does get any worse, we do get through these things, and hopefully, it doesn't, and we don't have another war between like, like we are experiencing history at the moment. We experienced history from this ongoing pandemic, and we're going to experience history. We are experiencing history, even though it may not be our country, the country that you're in at the moment. But
Yeah.
if there is anyone in Ukraine or the fighting nations at the moment that are there listening to this podcast, if you are, I'll just say, uh, like, stop, like Russia, for example, or just the stop. Fighting's not the way of anything. Like fighting makes things worse. Um, um, yeah, it makes things worse. Like we all fight. There's different concepts of fighting. Like we fight for our Crohn's every day, but it's not nice. It's not. We wouldn't want to fight. We wouldn't want to do that. But um, that's just some thoughts of me. Keep positive. Try and do the daily things you want to do, and like keep safe. I hope the ones people in Ukraine are keeping safe out there, and I hope everyone there is a good resolution at the end. But fingers crossed. But yeah, I think Makayla will agree with what I've just said.
Yeah. Can I just add like one
Yeah,
thing to that I was
yeah,
thinking about with the whole like war thing? Like, I don't know. I kind of I related to the Crohn's too, but I was kind of thinking about how like, you know, we were talking earlier about like, you know, we don't know when we're gonna get sick again with Crohn's. Like it's unpredictable. We don't know when we're gonna get better when we're sick. We don't know when we're gonna get sick when we're better. And we don't know if it's gonna be mild or serious, if we're gonna need surgery or, just medications. But like, when you have those good days, you got to take advantage of them. And I feel like it's the same with, the the world and, potential for war and war existing. If you're obviously it's not the same if you're in Ukraine because that's a shitty situation. But, if you're in other parts of the world and, you have like the fear of, the whole idea of nuclear war, world war, and everything like that, and things spreading. Just, live like that might happen tomorrow.
Yeah,
Because like you don't know, and even if this wasn't happening right now, there's always going to be some sort of a risk. I mean, did you watch like Don't Look Up, the movie
yeah.
on Netflix? Yeah, I mean, like a freaking asteroid or comet or something, whatever that was, could just hit us at any second, and we wouldn't even know that it's going to hit us until like a second before. Or there could be chaotic news, but there's other stuff that could just happen, and you
It's
can't predict it. So it's like just live
unpredictable.
in the now.
Yeah, yeah. Like for me, I like Doctor Who. For most of you listening, you probably know that quite enough. But 'cause we always relate that to hobbies and with interests, and at this moment in time, we would like a doctor, like a fictional character like that, just to come alive and save everyone, or like a superhero, like from the Avengers, like you got Spider-Man. But yeah, we'd like that to happen. But yeah, it's sad, like hearing the sirens, like which hasn't been done since the World War Two. So it's the nearest thing since, but a lot of things has changed since then, and like fingers crossed that it's all going to be okay. But that's kind of nice for me. All relating to Crohn's in today's episode. It's been a really good one. Um, um, I think one of the longest ones I've done, but it's been a really good
Yeah,
one.
damn.
No,
Yeah.
it's a good thing because we've spoken
Oh
about
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot. We've spoken about autism, we've spoken about mental health, we've spoken about what's going on in the world at the moment, Crohn's disease, IBD, coronavirus. So yeah, we've had a really good range of
All over the
topics today.
place.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm the type of person that can go on for 6 hours straight talking, and
yeah,
we don't need
uh,
that. But
yeah, yeah. I'm afraid everything has to come to an end at some point.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's been a really good conversation, Michaela, and it's been a joy speaking to you today.
Yeah, totally.